The Clifton 9 was one of the best daily running shoes HOKA had made in years. Then came the Clifton 10. HOKA increased the stack height, changed the drop from a 5 to an 8mm, and suddenly it felt more like a max cushion cruiser than a snappy daily trainer. Some runners liked the extra cushioning, but a lot of longtime Clifton fans felt it had lost some of that classic Clifton feel. Now we have the HOKA Clifton 11. I bought these myself, so this isn't sponsored, and these are my independent thoughts. On paper, the Clifton 11 looks very similar to the Clifton 10, same 8mm drop, similar stack height, similar weight, and still that compression molded EVA midsole. So the question is, has HOKA done enough with the Clifton 11 to justify spending the money, or is this too similar to the Clifton 10? I'll go through the changes, the fit, the ride, the main pros and cons, and how it compares to the Asics Gel-Nimbus 28 and the New Balance 1080 V15. Starting with what has actually changed. At first glance, the Clifton 11 is still very close to the Clifton 10. You've got the same stack, 8mm drop, a very similar weight, and HOKA are still using the compressed molded EVA. But the Clifton 11 is not just the Clifton 10 with a new colorway. There's a new open cell structure insole, an updated upper, and slightly more accommodating fit. And the shoe feels smoother through the forefoot. The toe box also feels better than before. It's still not anatomical, and it's not as wide as something like the Gaviota 6, but for the Clifton, there's definitely more space through the front of the shoe. Moving on to the specs, the Clifton 11 is a neutral daily trainer. Think easy runs, steady miles, walking, treadmill sessions, and everyday use. It's not built for speed. It's built to be comfortable, smooth, and reliable. Price-wise, it comes in at around €160 in Europe, or $155 in the US, depending on where you buy it. The stack height is still firmly in that max cushion category, around 42mm in the heel, 34 in the forefoot, giving you an 8mm drop. So if you're hoping this would feel more like the Clifton 9 again, I don't think it does. The Clifton 11 improves on the Clifton 10, but it hasn't gone back to that snappier Clifton 9 feel. Weight-wise, it's very similar to the Clifton 10, so it's not the lightest shoe in the category, but for the amount of cushioning on the foot, it still feels reasonably light. The upper is a new technical mesh upper. It has a comfortable amount of padding around the heel, a secure midfoot lockdown, and more accommodating in the forefoot than before. The midsole is HOKA's CMEVA, paired with an updated open cell structure insole. There's no plate, no dual density support system, and no super foam, so it's still a fairly traditional setup combined with HOKA's rocker geometry. The outsole has rubber coverage in the main high wear areas. It's not full of rubber coverage, which helps keep the weight down, which should be fine for normal road running, walking, treadmill use, and everyday wear. Grip is adequate without being the standout feature. On dry roads, pavements, and treadmill runs, I had no issues. It's been very hot here in Annecy, so I haven't had a chance to test it properly on wet roads. For sizing, it runs true to size for most people. The upper is a bit more forgiving than before. If you have a narrow to normal width foot, your normal running shoe size should be fine. If you're between sizes, or if you have a wider forefoot, I would try the wide version rather than sizing up. If you're unsure, check out our free foot width sizing guide in the description. So where does the Clifton 11 work well? The first thing is the ride. This still feels recognisably like a Clifton, but it is a better version than the Clifton 10. The midsole itself does not feel dramatically different. This is not suddenly a super foam shoe, but the overall feel is better. And I think that comes from the newer insole, the smoother transition, and a slightly more flexible forefoot. The Clifton 10 can feel a bit stiff through the front of the shoe. The Clifton 11 rolls through more easily, feels less blocky underfoot, and is simply easier to run in. So while it's not a fast shoe, it is an easy shoe to run in. And for a trainer, that matters. The second strength is stability. This is not a stability shoe, but is a very stable neutral shoe. You've got a broad base, a bit of guidance from the side walls, and foam that doesn't feel too soft or wobbly. So for new runners, walkers, or anyone who wants cushioning without losing control, the Clifton 11 works well. The third strength is the fit. It is still not an anatomical toe box, and it's not as wide as the Gaviota 6, but there is more room at the front than before. The upper feels less restrictive, the midfoot hold is secure, and I had no problems with heel slip. The fourth strength is versatility. This works for easy runs, recovery runs, treadmill sessions, walking, traveling, and everyday wear. It's not exciting, but it's very easy to live with. Now let's talk about where it falls short. The first issue is that the midsole still feels a little bit dated. The updated open cell structure insole does help the shoe feel a bit bouncier and more comfortable underfoot, and the ride is smoother than the Clifton 11. But underneath that, this is still a compression molded EVA. Compared to the newer foams, it does not have that energetic feel, it doesn't have that bounce of something like the Nova Blast, the soft premium feel of the Nimbus, or the lighter, more responsive feel of the New Balance 1080 V15. The second issue is the pace range. The Clifton 11 is best at easy to steady paces. It's comfortable for daily mileage, recovery runs and slower long runs. But when you start picking up the pace, it doesn't really come alive. The foam is not that responsive, the shoe is not especially snappy, and although the forefoot is more flexible, it still doesn't feel like a shoe that wants to go fast. So if you want one shoe that can handle easy runs, tempo runs, interval and race day, there are better options out there. This is much more of a comfort first daily trainer. The third issue is that Clifton 9 fans may still not be fully convinced. The drop is still 8mm, the stack is still high, and the shoe still feels more built up than the older Clifton models. So if you loved the Clifton 9 because it was lighter, lower drop, and had that snappier daily trainer feel, the Clifton 11 may still not be what you're looking for. So how does it compare to the Asics Gel-Nimbus 28 and the New Balance 1080 V15? The Nimbus is the more expensive shoe at around €200, so there's a decent price jump compared to the Clifton 11. It feels softer underfoot, especially through the heel, but also has a stiffer forefoot and a more aggressive rocker geometry. That gives a slightly more efficient feel when you start moving faster. The Nimbus is also a little bit lighter, so although it's still a max cushion comfort shoe, I think it has a slightly wider pace range than the Clifton. I would choose the Nimbus 28 if you want a stiffer, more premium feeling shoe that can handle some steady or up-tempo running. I would choose the Clifton 11 over it if you want something cheaper, more stable, less aggressive, and easier to use for more relaxed runs or walking and everyday wear. Next, the New Balance 1080 V15. It's a massive upgrade from the V14, and it is still more expensive than the Clifton 11, coming in around €180. It feels more modern underfoot, it's softer, lighter, and has a bit more bounce from the new Infineon midsole, but has less foam underfoot, and because that foam is softer, it doesn't feel quite as stable as the Clifton. Clifton 11 feels more like a stable max cushion daily trainer. There's more structure underfoot, and the platform is broader and gives you more of a controlled ride. So I would choose the 1080 V15 if you want a softer, lighter, more responsive shoe for daily runs and the occasional quicker effort. I would choose the Clifton 11 if you want a more stable max cushion option for easier runs, walking and lifestyle use. So do I recommend the Clifton 11? Yes, but it depends on what you want from it. If you're hoping this will go back to the Clifton 9 feel, I don't think it does. The stack is still high, the drop is still 8mm, and it feels a bit more built up than the older Clifton models. But compared to the Clifton 10, I do think it's a better shoe. The ride is smoother, the forefoot feels more flexible, the transition is better, and the toe box is more accommodating. The updated open cell structure insole also gives a nice step-in feel, and may be part of why it feels a little bit bouncier underfoot. It's not as soft and as premium as the Gel-Nimbus 28, and it's not as light or responsive as the New Balance 1080 V15. But if you want a comfortable, stable, max cushion daily trainer for easy runs, walking, treadmill session, and everyday use, the Clifton 11 is a solid update. A lot of people also use the Clifton for walking and everyday wear, so let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do a 100-step walking review of the Clifton 11. And as always, liking, sharing, subscribing is always appreciated.